All right, fellas. About 85%, probably somewhere around there in my business, is picking up after where somebody, dropped the ball on a project. Uh, they seem to come to me in boxes and bags and parts, and people get in way over their head and lost interest or confidence or whatever. And it's my job to go ahead and make that thing a working vehicle. So I figure maybe for somebody's first time project car, I can give you a little help. Maybe a top 5, 10 list, whatever, of things that get you in trouble. One of the big things, and I could probably make my whole list off of this, is choosing the right car. Now, if you're starting your new project car, your first project car, and you haven't done a bunch of this and figured out how to problem solve, make things work, source parts, all that kind of crap, you're probably going to get yourself in trouble. So I'd say your first project car, choose one you can get parts for. Like this is very readily available for parts. You can do almost anything you want with that car out of the box. No modifications necessary. Everything's ready to go. You can just build yourself almost whatever you want right out of a catalog. Much more simple solution than starting out with something like that one where everything is custom made, 100%. I mean, we can buy some like reproduction bumpers, things like that. But that car didn't come with a V8, it didn't come with a chopped roof, none of that. So you got to figure out how to make all that work. And most of that stuff you have to make. And then, there's a whole bunch of small parts to a car. Let's say just, these little pieces. We can't buy any of this. This all goes up in the front end. These are armrest pieces. They're gone. I mean, bottom's gone. I can't buy that reproduction, so you got to be able to make that, Not to say you can't learn to make it. I mean, I learned by doing. So, you can learn it. But I say number one thing is buy the right project that suits you. And then after that, I say the second thing you do, or maybe the first thing even before you buy the project, is go out and research, what works. What you can get parts for, what works for your personal, taste, budget, all that kind of thing. I'd say the third thing is buy one that runs. Buy one you can jump in and drive, and then tinker on it. Just do little bits. And I like driving kind of a rough pile of crap car. I make cars pretty for people, but my old Daily's pretty rough looking 57 Chevy. And I love it because I can park it wherever I want. I don't really give a damn. Somebody opens a door on it, whatever. No biggie. Where you get one that's really nice, you always panic over it. You kind of hate to leave it anywhere. All you do is clean them, which I shouldn't knock them too much because people pay me to build them. But I mean, the whole point of it is there is a certain freedom in having one that's kind of rough. And then as you go, you can build it up and make it nicer and nicer. And that's what Todd did with this one. This car, he drove it around in black primer forever. And it drove like a pile. And so we put the Church Boy stuff on it. It drove better. And then he started breaking driveline parts because he was getting after it. So we made that stronger. We just kind of, slowly built our way up to it. Now we're going to make it pretty. Which is fine. But, it's, he kind of worked his way up to it. And this was kind of his first American project car. I guess he had some little 4-cylinder stuff when he was young, but this was his first taste into this. He bought a good one to start with, and you can build your way up as you go. So I'd say that's what I say. Get something that's running and driving, even if it's running and driving poorly, but you can play with it, you can run it, you can do what you want. And then I would say, the fourth thing was be realistic. Your skill set is what it is. Air compressor is going to make a bunch of noise. But your skill set is what it is. It's not going to change the minute you buy a project car. You're going to have to develop that skill set. So, try to buy something that's going to fit your current skill set. And then as you go with your project, you're going to pick up skills. Because, that's how any of us that have any skills, how we did it. We just did and learned. The point of it is, if you got something that's running and driving, you're not going to get discouraged. So you're going to be able to have a car, keep playing with it a little bit, keep adding some things, keep going at it until you're comfortable enough to really get after it. The other thing I run into, which would be the next item, and I forgot the number, is 90% of the time, this is what happens with people. They tear them completely apart. I mean, they got them. They get in way over their head right off the start. I mean, way over the head. So that's, it's pretty unrealistic. I mean, you gotta be honest with yourself about where your skill set is, or where your constitution is in terms of completing a project, because not everybody's set out for this. I mean, it can get discouraging. You look around one of these things, like I look around that thing, my God, I got just piles and piles and piles and piles of small jobs just stacked up ahead of me before that's operational. And so that can, if you're not used to doing it, that can get to you. And so and I think that happens to a lot of people, and they just forget about a job. So I'd say you have to be realistic, and don't just jump in and tear it all apart. Wait until you're kind of there, and you've been around that car long enough to know. Well, number one, you're going to know if you've tinkered on it and you've done all kinds of little improvements. You've learned that car, so it's going to be much, much easier if you do tear it all apart and get it down to this level to put it back together, because you've kind of, you've developed a certain intimacy with your car, and you've figured out kind of how it's going to go back together. It's real hard sometimes to put something together when you don't know what it looks like when it's together. And I do it a lot, and I'm used to it because people bring me cars I've never touched before. But over time, I've developed an ability to do it out of necessity as much as anything. But I mean, and you learn to problem solve, and you learn to do what you got to do. So we'll just walk around this one for a little bit, and I'll show you a few things on both cars, kind of examples of what I'm talking about. So we're going to start with the Easy Project. The Easy Project is this Chevy 2. Disc brake kit, you can bolt right in place. Suspension units, you can bolt right in place. The front frame unit, we've ordered for it, again, bolts right in place. All very straightforward. Most people can handle this. The AC unit, bolts right in place. I can buy all the glass for the car. I can buy all the sheet metal for the car. We've got new instrumentation we bought, fits right in. New column, fits right in. So, I mean, let's face it, that's much easier. The mini tub unit in the back, obviously, we had to do a lot more surgery for that. And the rear suspension, same deal. That was fabrication. So, but you don't have to do that. You can hire that out. You can learn to do it as you go. It's one project. Keep it one project so you can actually see it through to completion. But that is all a basic car that you can buy stuff for, and you can make happen, and you can realize your dream. So this one, much different. It's got a 49 Merc back window, a chopped roof that he paid somebody else to do that didn't really consider how they were going to make the glass work. So that was a big stumbling block for them. They started a bunch of metal work that didn't get finished. Again, somebody that hung their shingle out there and I think maybe promised more than they could produce, and it's unfortunate, and it happens a lot in the business, but we're slowly working our way through it. So now you can buy some parts. Universal shifter, universal throttle pedal. I did find gauges for it. There's going to be some other parts in the dash we can't get, so that's going to be another problem-solving thing. I've never done a chopped roof. It came to me chopped. I've got to figure out how my glass guys are going to cut windshields to fit this thing. I bought multiples, so they can break them if need be. I'm hoping they know how to do it. I don't. So I'm going to be stuck with somebody else for that one. I had to learn, this has vent windows. I had to learn how to weld pot metal to cut these window frames down. That was a chore. So I'm talking about a lot of things here that would really set you back if you haven't been around. It set me back, and I've been around, I want to make exhaust. This is how I have to make exhaust. I buy it in pieces. I custom make it. Nobody makes a kit for this car. They do, however, make an aluminum radiator for this car, which is great. Motor mounts are supposed to fit this car with a V8. They don't. There's like one type of header you can use. The brake system, I didn't do this, they started it, but they moved everything up here. It was under the car, and I just finished it up. But again, it's all stuff you had to make, Pulleys, brackets, all that kind of thing. Of course, you can't buy anything for this per se. That's all out of the race catalog. Pretty simple parts. I know how to source it. I've been around, I've done it. Again, if it's everything you have to learn as you're working, boy, life gets a lot harder. You've possibly discouraged yourself on that project. Brake hoses, simple things, little small items. All this I've done out of the race catalogs. It all works. It's all nice stuff. It's durable. I know they won't have a problem. So, but that's, those are things that over time, by doing all this, I've been able to develop. And sometimes if it's your first project car, you don't know that. So it helps a bunch. So we're looking underneath the car, and all this is custom made. Everything. Transmission mounts custom made. All the lines are custom made. You all can learn to make lines pretty easy. That's not really a big deal. Just buy a flaring tool and some stuff. If you don't want to mess with that though, if you buy one of the conventional cars, you can just bolt them in place. Rear differential. I have to cut mounts off. I had to weld new mounts on. I had to do all kinds of stuff for that. That's not finished yet. But that, again, is something I wouldn't have to do. In a conventional car, I can just order like this one. Even with the Church Boy suspension in the back, we can just order a Moser differential, the width we want, bolt it right in. You're done. This can, and it's expensive. Don't get me wrong. But this is the kind of thing that can stall a project. And and then you end up with a whole bunch of money and time and a dream sitting in a corner getting nothing done to it. So it's important, I think, to be realistic with yourself. If you get into this, you're definitely in it way deeper. So you got a whole lot of custom made under here, I still have to make tailpipes. I have to put the gas tank in place first. And this is the kind of thing you can get yourself in trouble with. If you haven't been down this road a few times, you can easily make tailpipes and then realize your gas tank doesn't fit. I've done this enough to know that, okay, I got to make sure my shocks are in place. I got to make sure my fuel tank's in place. So then my tailpipes are going to clear everything. But I know back in the day, I didn't always look for that. And then I would have to stop and redo a bunch of stuff. So that's why I say your first project car, you want something you can see through and get it to completion. Yeah, so end of the day, I don't want to discourage anybody from taking on a project. I mean, if you want to take on a crazy big one, take it on. I just kind of want you to know what you're up against. If you're trying to save money by buying an oddball car, or one of the cars not everybody wants, you're not going to save any money at the end of the project. By the time you start trying to find parts that aren't available, or if they are, they're a fortune. That off-brand stuff is cheaper when you buy in, and it's more expensive on the way out for sure, and it's not worth as much if you go to sell it. So, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, if you got something else extra special, that's not true. They can be worth a fortune. But I mean, on average, if you buy a little Vauxhall or a Henry J or something like that because it's cheap, and you think you're going to save money, if it needs a lot of parts, you're not going to save money. Is all I'm saying. If it's what you really want, it's your passion project. As long as you go into it with your eyes wide open, have at it. But I mean, if you don't want to buy a Camaro or a Mustang or whatever is popular, Chevelle, whatever, you don't want to buy it because it's expensive. All the parts for it are way cheaper, so you're probably going to come out there pretty good. I'm just something to think about. I mean, if you've been down this road 100 times, nothing I said really matters. But if you're just starting out, you get your first one, and you don't want to pay somebody, or if your budget's small or whatever, you have to think about all the pros and cons. And I mean, the reason why these popular cars are getting expensive is because everybody wants them. And part of the reason everybody wants them is because they are pretty cool. the parts are available, so they're easy to do, you know. And when the parts are available and easy to do, they get cheaper. So, you know, end of your project, you're going to have probably more money in that oddball car or that special project or that passion project than you are in a more common run-of-the-mill thing like this Chevy 2 here, or, you know, something like that. So it's all things you want to think about when you start a project. But you should start a project. And if you get into a project that's over your head, there's a ton of people like me that are willing to take your money and happy to do it. You know, and if you can afford that, that'll get you where you want to be. If you've got something like this, this is this guy's dream car. It's not my dream car. I don't hate the car, but it's just, you know, it's not something I would hunt for. But I mean, he loves it, and I want to give him the best thing I can give him. If it makes him happy, then that's awesome. And he saved his whole life for it. You know, it's really something special to him. If you're in that position, go for it. But, you know, it's just all things you have to consider. And if you plan ahead and understand what you're up against, it's pretty easy to see it through to completion. But if you all of a sudden get hit with a whole bunch of surprises, that's no bueno. So